This is the first time we're hearing from him after the declaration of state of emergency and the position of...
We were invited to Abuja. When I say we, chairman of the 36 states plus Abuja 37 were invited to join the breaking of fast of, I don't know how to pronounce it very well, so don't blame me. Ifa or Ifta. Yeah. And the very good hours. We had very sumptuous meals. We had contacts, that we could make or explore and so forth. I'm here to actually brief the national chairman and members of the National Working Committee on the developments in Rivers State. I thought I owed them that responsibility and to also seize the opportunity to thank the party at the national level for also coming heavily in support of our position in Rivers State. So we'll take those as preface for the issues in points. The seeming, I don't even use the word seeming right now, the apparent and prevalent issue in Nigeria today initially was Natasha and the Senate. But later, it graduated to state of emergency in Rivers State. That is my own concern. I'm not concerned with the other. I want to say to you that the state of emergency called by Mr. President saved Rivers State from anarchy. Indeed, people like us could barely, hardly leave certain places that we hide. For fear of the unknown. When you see non-state actors brandish guns and make statements, all tailoring towards anarchy, lawlessness, then you should know that there is problem looming. This is my first time of talking on this matter. Because if you're a war general, after every strategy, you may recoil and re-strategize. Because I have been here many times to discuss the issue of Rivers State, and I've not forgotten that we have said that the government of the day in Rivers State is clueless. I'm sure some of you followed the Supreme Court judgment of February 28th. That judgment gave credence, added vent to our positions, very unbiased positions, that there was no government in Rivers State. That's what the Supreme Court held. And all of you who are followers of government, or some of you who read a little of political science, here you have not forgotten the Baron de Montesquieu, his theory, what they call separation of powers and checks and balances. The learned philosopher noted that there are three arms that make up a government. And he said the legislative arm, the executive arm, and the judicial arm. And so the Supreme Court said, I'm sure some of you are aware, that there was no government in Rivers State because the legislative arm was completely non-existent. You know, I can speak to you authoritatively on some of these issues. Yeah, I see some people jump into the television houses and begin to cast aspersions on Mr. President and condemn what they do not know about. There's what we call argumentary or petitio principle. There's also what we know, that you argue from ignorance, the point of ignorance. Mr. President knows more than they do know. Thank God President Jonathan had been president. General Obasanjo had been president. And they know that on their table every day is what they call the security report. So one wonders how they will jump in or jump onto the matter, not recognizing or realizing that in their time they also had the security report. We're aware of what we were pushing. In Rivers State, the assembly members had issued a letter stating gross misconduct against the governor of Rivers State. So it's supposedly the first step. Once that was on, something harder came. Emergency, there was emergency in Rivers State. So if you check the two, there are factors that necessarily will give the position of things. In Rivers State, there was no government. Even the Supreme Court, they are also not members of, they are not from Rivers State. But they read all the documents before them. But what every Nigerian, even the world, knows is that the governor jettisoned 27 lawmakers and was dealing with 3. And for whatever it is worth, it is a misnomer, complete misnomer. It's unheard of. In a democracy, that, according to the Supreme Court, for me, I think that even 12.5% they give mathematically is high. The mathematical thing that there is that the governor was working with 9% of the demonstration. And also refused to address the issues of budget and from the time of a judgment from Okocha, it was in January 23rd, 2024. The governor decided on his own, so much his whims and caprices, to withhold the finances of the assembly. And was deciding for the assembly where they will sit. You're also aware that the governor, in exercise of his whims and caprices, pulled down an iconic structure comparable to what the National Assembly. And we're hearing very recently, I talked about structural defects. That's unheard of. If you were even going to destroy or demolish, shouldn't you put the person who owns the office on notice? So you see the bias already. What do I say? Most of these issues you all know. And I was wondering, I don't know, or you, my colleagues, you are more in this business than I am. I don't know whether every one of you can say that in your findings, in your publications, that when the assembly was pulled down, that somebody like Goodluck Jonathan made a statement. He didn't. It was also an affront to democracy. I was chief of staff between 2012 and 2015. I served under the Tinubu government. You all know the case of police commissioner who was deployed deliberately for it to Rivers State. CP Joseph Mbu. At that period, there was lawlessness, complete one. Well, the only difference was that it was the state fighting the state. The commissioner of police could tell the governor of the state who has immunity that your movement will be this route and not the other route. He said it's the leopard that came to tame the lion. Those were under Ghana. Thank God for our resilience. But there was nothing uncomfortable or worse than uncomfortable that we didn't experience. The assembly complex was taken over by armored personnel carriers. and gun-trotting security men. Our assembly members deliberately or literally sat on the floor to legislate outside the confines of the assembly because they cannot access it. They sat down on the streets of Port Harcourt to legislate. We didn't hear anything. We didn't hear anything from Mr. President then. Then he knew more abundantly that there was that scenario in River State. We're also not unaware of the fact that the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, in his time, also declared state of emergency in 3 states of this country. What some people now say is that the suspension of the governor and assembly members is wrong. But thank God that I hear that the Governors Forum, PDP Governors Forum, is approaching the Supreme Court. I'm sure you know that there has been no legislation whatsoever on the matter. Now that they have gone to the Supreme Court, it will enrich whatever the outcome is, will enrich the jurisprudence. I don't want to take on individuals, but I hear the NBA had come out to say, oh, it's an affront on democracy and all that, when the assembly complex was pulled down. When it was bombed, and the next other day, 11 equipments were deployed to the assembly to bring it down. 11. NBA was alive. We didn't hear anything from them. So one wonders why this plenty talk. So it's good that they are opposing the court, and so we should allow the Supreme Court to decide on the actions of Mr. President. What else do I discuss? My people, I know as much that as journalists, you are to be seen as neutral. Their role is to introduce the matter and get the opinions of parties. But when you introduce the matter and you give the finality of it, it doesn't make sense. I'm not here to cast aspersions on some of the things we hear. But I must note that no one individual can be said to be a compendium of knowledge. Not even one. I listened to somebody I hold in high esteem, Dr. Ruben Abata. He was saying on national television that anyone that argues negatively, that is against his own opinion, is either an imbecile or an illiterate. I'm sure you could listen, you could heard national television. And I wonder what that meant. That is, he is know all and do all. His name is knowledge. It's unheard of. I haven't seen that. I haven't heard that kind of thing in my whole life. What I know is that knowledge is not a thing that you hold in your hand. Knowledge is a universal concept. And from where your own knowledge stops, begins another. So that's why we believe that it is cross-fertilization of ideas that lead to the churning out of new knowledge. You don't need to be bellicose to push your point. You want to fight. You don't need to be bellicose. I'm not aware that bellicosity is part of journalism. I'm not aware of that. So, my dear people, so that I'll stand to take questions from you. I want you to generate the questions. The truth of the matter is that Rivers State was headed towards anarchy. And you all know that Rivers State is one of the states that sustain this country. Some of these people who are shouting, oh, President did this, President did that, would have also been the same persons who would have said, oh, you had all this at your fingertips and you did nothing. People boasted to mayhem. And I told you here that non-state actors were brandishing sophisticated ammunitions. I'm clearly saying that if the governor was impeached, that they were threatening brimstone and fire. A political matter became ethnicized. People say, oh, we're Joe, we're this, how can we won't sit to see you remove our own brother? But I wish that they also were in sync or in knowledge of how that their brother became governor. He could not have. He's from Okobo. If you know Okobo in Rivers State, it's not even one local government. We call him Okobo Nkoro local government. Their voting strength is not less than 30,000. You can go and make your investigation. The voting strength of that local government is not up to 30,000. And I challenge you to go and make that inquiry. And you're talking about other LGAs that even a ward produces more than 50,000. A ward, not the LGA now. But he became governor by divine providence, by the hard work of somebody. They all became members of his family, political family. Maybe I should just allude a bit to the issues of people are saying, oh, you removed the governor, or you suspended the governor, suspended the assembly. Why didn't you suspend the minister of federal capital? Was he in the fray? The answer is no. If bringing him to the fray is because he is the leader of that political structure, then you may be right. The 32 assembly members were produced, sponsored by the former governor of Rivers State, now Minister of Federal Capital Territory, His Excellency Eze 1 year on Wike, CON. The election was one day as House of Reps, rather, Assembly and Governorship. Are you not aware of what happened? That the same group also threw up the governor of the state. So if you want to get him to the fray, that is the only reason you can or you should. The other point we make is that, and I've said that here for you, that Fubara, Governor Fubara, was Wike's political investment. I've said that many times. What happens to you when you have made an investment? Should you allow the investment to fly away or to explode? And in politics, I'm talking about even in economics, in politics, it is heavy, if not impossible, for someone to allow you dismantle his political structure. So they are all members of the same party. We have APC, they are members of a party called PDP. So for those who are calling for his suspension and all that, they are not getting the point right. That man had been at the epicenter of peace. How do we resolve this matter? But the governor became so hydra-headed. His head became bigger than his pillow. He had some people who told him, you have the red pen. You are know all and do all. You can make or unmake with your red pen. And I'm sure some of you saw him on the program where he brought the red pen. This is the red pen. He's still with me. This is what they are after. I still have it. I don't know where the red pen has dried up now. Or maybe before 6 months, the red pen may dry up. So, my people, like I said to you, my business here is to brief the party and to thank the party. The National Policy Secretary of our party is a great man. He had at every twist and turn defended our party, defended Mr. President on this matter. So we will, what Arise does every day now is that for the past 1 week, this is the matter in the front burner. And they will necessarily and deliberately bring people who are anti Mr. President and anti the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. We are all here. You are witnesses to what is going on in the state. I mean, in FCT. A man who was fighting that kind of fight couldn't have been making the achievements he's making. So that's what we're here for. We have written thanking Mr. President for his timeous intervention. It couldn't have been if this state of emergency thing was not declared or proclaimed. People are saying, oh, we go to Port Harcourt, there's somebody's fighting, we go to year one. But it's because of the emergency state, the state of emergency that was declared by Mr. President. Security in Rivers State has been beefed up. Intelligence has been beefed up in this state.